Good evening, all. I was asked to do a reading on Albert Rudolph, or Swami Rudrananda. And the person that asked just wanted to know basically where his consciousness is now. It sounded like, and if he was enlightened. It's also, he died in a plane crash. So just to see where things are at for him. I'm really not very familiar with him at all. So all we can do is see what happens, okay? So I am using my new pendulum, and this one I made, I actually found this little piece outside, and it just looked perfect for a pendulum, so I made the rest of it, and I haven't used it yet on a reading, so it'll be kind of fun to see how it goes. Okay, so let's get started with Albert's reading. So immediately, as one can see, the pendulum goes down. And I do see that plane in my mind, interestingly enough. Where it goes from here, I don't know. All right, so now it's lifting, and let's just see what happens with him. Okay, so going up to Albert's image, it does not have a lot of what I would call negativity is the best word to use in terms of just feeling like there was a lot of deep secrets or darkness in his path or his journey within his life. And so it does feel, it feels fine, really is the word for it. Okay, so he transcended some issues for himself in his journey. He did transcend some ways or behaviors or vasanas, which are energetic tendencies and patterns. So he was able to transcend some of those. Okay, so there is a column in him, a column of... Okay, so what I'm seeing, and I did hear a column of sacred energy, but then again, so it's a yes and a no, which means he was not fully awake. This column, this of energy, which is really Kundalini, was not fully awakened in him. There is some energy that he was able to transmit, and so that was there. In terms of the snake energy, that is dark, which means it was still in the dark in many ways for him, what Kundalini is and how it moves through the system, and he just was not enlivened with that energy fully. Although he spoke of it. He spoke of it, which a lot of people do without fully experiencing it. So this was Albert partially here. Okay, so... Okay, so there are some lines on his forehead, which is more in the Swami tradition. So he did take those vows and, has that name Swami Rudrananda. I'm not quite sure what kind of ceremony he may have went through. Okay, so it's there. He still has turbulence in him, his heart. And this is more during his life. So we're still with his body, his physical time on the earth plane. There was turbulence inside of him, like questions. He was questing. And there's some questions in him that just, he wasn't able to come to the end of or find completion with in himself, in his search. Okay, so, and there we go again with, feeling that turbulent energy, that turbulent type of aura or energy around him, although he did work at using his eyes to give energy and using his presence for that. It was just not at what's called 0-point balance, which means complete stillness and peace, non-dual consciousness. So let's make sure. So with the pendulum, is this correct? So you can see the pendulum is making a yes, which means yes, this is correct. He was not in that non-dual space when his plane crashed and his spirit left the form. Okay, so he wasn't done with his journey at that point. Okay, so we're still on while he was in the earth plane. One can see these lines, meaning, he had these connections like a grid, like he was connected to a lot of people. He was connected to different swamis, different teachers during his life. He was interested in the arts in some ways. He made space for people to come and be, so he could be available to them. He created a space for them and used, again, what he felt inside him was this wisdom that he had gathered from these connections. And really that's all that it's been. I can see some books stacked up, which means the knowledge that he had, that he transmitted, was gathered and learned more from books. And although he did have some energy in him of Shakti, a lot of what was there was book type knowledge. And again, let's check it. So this is correct. Or knowledge that he got from just listening to people, talking with them. It was more like treading, I guess, and I see someone like a scholar type, like holding books, although he may not have been aware of this. He didn't speak this way, possibly. This is what it was in him. It was more gathered and collected knowledge with this energy of sacred, I want to say snake energy or kundalini that was not fully awake, and yet there was some Shakti, as I mentioned. Okay, this was his life. Again, I do not feel like he lived, there were certain actions that were unethical in him or darkened. It was just a path in which he felt in his mind that he could be a teacher, put himself in a certain role where he had not completely understood what that was, or wasn't able to understand what the goal is to wash the individual self away, which he was not. This was not completed in him. And again, this is saying yes, 100% for sure with that. So okay, let's see if there's anything else on his earthly plane that is of interest or needs to be said. Okay, so again, we're getting a no from the pendulum. And this pendulum is working very well. I'm really enjoying it. And how big and long it is, it's just has a good feeling to it. So, all right, so let's move forward into his consciousness now, what may be happening or what has happened for him, for Albert Rudolph. Okay, so you see some swinging motion. What that means, I'm not sure. Interesting, swinging. So let's get a better feeling of this swinging feeling. Let's see, does this mean is where his consciousness is? Okay, well, interestingly, so it's swinging in a way that is saying he's going from a lot of different moving, from some kind of being more elated to depression or sadness. So his emotions are still really labile in him. Is this currently? So yes, so there's this lability in him. of these emotional swings. I've never gotten that with the pendulum like this in terms of the swinging, which is very interesting. Okay, so he's not able to stay put in the center. One can see that. Okay, so he's also circling in his mind. Mind stuff is circling, and I can see energy like whirling, bits of debris whirling in this circle. So he's spinning in that way as well. So, there he just, and things just haven't settled for him right now. In his conscious state, he's wanting, okay, it's coming. He's wanting time to process his feelings more, like what, like how has his life journey while on this earth served him? How has it served him? He's not able to fully get into the nuts and bolts of how his time has given him a way, like a center point, or a way to be grounded. He just is not able to grab onto it in that way as his let's go back to, so his accident, or this tragic way that he passed, which was more of a shock, or a quick way in which he passed sudden, like, a surprise, like, he wasn't expecting that, of course, that day, and dying that way. So let's see, so that, that really, I do see some pieces being thrown apart, which could just be the plane that he was in. So, and then there, from that point on, then Albert went into more of a sleep state right after, because he just wasn't available in his mind to what happened. And this may be what occurs many times with people that do die that way. They're just in such a shock. They're in this dream deep sleep for a while, where you haven't been able just to connect the dots at all, and they may never connect. Not like you have to connect, what just happened, but many times people aren't getting that they have actually passed away. They're in another state of consciousness. The body has gone. Let's see if this is correct. Yes, so the ethers take them in a way, and they're just in these dream states, and this can go on for quite a while. And so with Albert, that is what happened. He was in that dream state, and so he just, I see his body laying down, like, he just remained there for quite a while, and then, once emerging from that, it's just beginning to shake things up, like, what's happened to me? Where am I? Where, feeling untethered with him. Feeling untethered, feeling like he lost himself in that way. Like, well, what can I grab onto that's me right now, in terms of what is solid? And so, that's where he really was looking for that identity, is the word, and wasn't able to quite grasp onto something that could help him again feel center and balanced. Is this correct? Okay, this is correct. So is this the state Albert is still in? Yes, he is still in that state of again swinging. Swinging in emotion, swinging. All right, so anything else really for him? Not really. Let's see where things may move forward for Albert, or what's to come, or if there's any other messages for him that could be beneficial for him, his energy Okay, so he did have a heart that was, it's interesting because I do see some darkness in it and some red, and it doesn't mean, again, he was a bad person, but I think his heart sometimes was not completely clear of his worries, of all of, again, whatever his vasanas were. There's some ropes in there, like, he just wasn't clear of all that, and he wasn't quite sure how to get in there and get that cleared away. And he didn't have, is it that he didn't have the correct practices, the correct way? Okay, yes, in many ways that's it, but he also kind of went off on his own, like, okay, I can do this now, and he wasn't ready for that. Was he ready for that? Okay, no, he needed more time to really find the right, I guess, beacon of light to help him to come to whatever stillness and substance he needed to before he journeyed on to be a teacher that others looked up to, in which he transmitted energies and things. Okay, let's see. I don't think he did harm to others necessarily. And it's saying no. It just he didn't have that heavy wisdom in him yet. He just wasn't time. So let's see if that may come for Albert later. Okay, so again, there's a very small yes. It grew weak. It grew light. The pendulum. Okay, so. Okay, and the heart is coming out this way, meaning his heart still really has to bloom. You can see a lotus here. What I'm feeling now is a lotus in his heart. Okay, that lotus has to bloom. That purity, that clarity, that grace still really needs to take time to bloom. And, let's see if he may allow this for himself. Okay, so right now he's not. He's just, I guess the word would be floundering more, and sort of all over the place with his energy. So let's see if he's, so this is possible for him though, and if he gets the right connections, if he's allows himself to surrender and be led down these right byways and roads so that he can meet the right master. I know he was connected with Nityananda the Avadut, and at least in the beginning, and this had to be beneficial. Let's see. So okay, so again, this is saying no, this, I don't mean bad like it was Nityananda. It was more, I see some darkness around his ears. He wasn't able to let that really get in then. Okay, so it just was not, interestingly enough, I see some energy coming down, like it just, he was not receptive in the way that it could really penetrate him. Okay, so he just kept moving. But, so, there's hope for him if he could allow himself to relax and surrender, allow all this debris that's whirling around to settle. And the pendulum's getting bigger, saying yes with this. Place his feet on the right path. Is he in body yet? I can't say. Okay, I was right there. It says no, he is not in body at this point. And big no. Interesting. Again, these big no's seem to be a little more emphatic, like no. So he's not in body at this point. Okay. He may eventually enter form. Okay, so yeah, eventually, but it's just, he's just kind of got a lot going on right now. But eventually, it'll come, I would imagine, for him. And he can journey again, but also where he's at now to, again, allow things to settle would be a really good thing for him now. And let's hope the best for him. We have a nice lotus here. We have balance, purity, nice zen, relaxing scene. We can hope that energy penetrates and that he opens his heart so that it can bloom and be cleaned of all the debris. And he does move forward to be, again, his ethics sounded fine, all of this, to be a decent, good, grounded teacher. All right, so that is it. I hope that was helpful, and may all have a good evening. Okay, namaste. Good night now.